Well, good afternoon, everyone, on this beautiful, chilly winter day. Uh, Alzira, Harrison, and I are here today to share with you a 2,000-foot view into the 2 CFR 200, and hopefully to dispel some uncertainties and also affirm some things that you know about it and help it be a useful tool for you as researchers here at UDC. So I think we will hop right into it. So again, welcome. My name is Alexandra Laing, and I am the research officer in the UDC Office of University Research. Oh, go back, Alzira. You have to introduce yourself.
Oh, I work with Alexandra at the Office of University Research, specifically at the Office of Sponsored Programs, where my role there is to be a grants management specialist. So I'm here to support Alex in this nice winter day where we can present to you some specifics about the uniform guidance related to our research. Alex, I guess you are muted.
You're right. We are
Okay,
both
okay.
rocking and rolling with our tech this morning. Thank you. So today we're going to take a 2,000-foot glimpse into the 2 CFR 200. 2 CFR 200 is the new annual code of federal regulations that serves as the authority guidance over grants and agreements and details the cost principles for educational institutions as well as others. This session will provide a high-level overview of this guidance, and we hope it will provide each of you with affirmation of what you know, as well as a deeper understanding of what you may not know, and provide you with tools that you can use this guidance to your benefit. The objective of understanding 2 CFR 200 is definitely not to memorize the document, but it's to understand the overall organization, the key takeaways, and the ways to use this guidance to your advantage. So today we're going to sort of go through this by looking at the following. First, we're going to take a look at the organizational structure, supports, and functions of the Office of University Research and provide you with some key contacts to support your research. And some of our esteemed colleagues are joining us on the call today. I see Laura Lee is on, as well as Cynthia is on. So Ms. Davidson and Ms. Muhammad, we will kind of give you a insight. They support you as well. We will then take a look into the 2 CFR 200 and look at what it is, why it's important, who it impacts, and how it's organized, also how to navigate the document. And then we're going to end with some specifics for reporting that apply to researchers specifically at universities. If questions come up for you throughout the session today, please feel free to drop them in the chat or note them for yourself, and then you can ask the whole group at the end. And thank you all for joining us today. So the Office of University Research is a centralized institutional office that is part of the Office of the Chief Academic Officer. Within this office exists Research Compliance and Research Security, the Office of Sponsored Programs, and Technology Commercialization. We are a support office and are in service of researchers in all of the schools at UDC, and we serve as subject matter experts around the oversight, the guidance, and the regulations that exist to help you align your research efforts and support the research that you want to do. So I am the research officer supporting the efforts of research compliance and research security and anything that you can imagine that falls into that bucket. And we also have Ms. Laura Lee Davidson, who is the director of the Office of Sponsored Programs and is UDC's authorized organization representative, the AOC, who is serving as the liaison for federal agencies.
Yeah, so when we talk about all the activities that goes under sponsored programs, we have our Office of Sponsored Programs, that is the unit under the Office of University Research that coordinates the university's sponsored activities. And that means all projects performed with external funds, either research or other general activities. So those activities may happen in a pre-award phase and a post-award phase. On the pre-award side, our office assists faculty and staff developing and submitting proposals for grants, for contracts, and agreements. In our team, Ms. Cynthia Mohammed is the grants management specialist who provides support for all pre-award activities. On the post-award side, the Office of Sponsored Programs also assists faculty and staff, but now in the implementation and monitoring of the awarded grants, contracts, and agreements. So Ms. Nancy Moore and I are the grants management specialists who provide support for all post-award activities. Unfortunately, today, due to other obligations, Ms. Moore is unable to be with us. So when we talk about post-award activities, what we mean by that is everything that happens after the grant or the agreement is awarded. For example, we are talking about any spending plan revisions, project changes or extensions, the time and effort report documentation on the execution of the projects, and so on. So either in the pre-award or post-award phase, the Office of Sponsored Programs team members work under the direction of Ms. Davidson, who is the AOR and is joining us together. So in sum, the Office of the University Research serves as this centralized institutional unit, always provides servicing, support, and non-financial compliance oversight for all sponsored activities at UDC. This is who we are. This is what we do.
So now let's talk about what the 2 CFR 200 is. It's a technical name for a document that is also known as uniform guidance, and it consists of administrative requirements, cost principles, and audit requirements for federal awards. It is issued by the Office of Management and Budget and is compiled from previously issued circulars that address each of those items individually. So it's sort of a collective document of all of the guidance that's existed previously and has been updated to meet the needs of researchers in this day and age. The uniform guidance addresses all aspects of federal awards, but not all components are applicable to universities. So we're going to distinguish the key pieces for you to be aware of today. It's also important to note that 2 CFR 200 is considered guidance and it's not a regulation. However, many agencies use this guidance to create their existing and future regulations. So while it's not officially a regulation, sometimes people think of it as one because a lot of times the guidance from this document is the thing that's creating the regulation and providing federal agencies with the kind of ability to put their regulations in place. So while this document is specifically guiding federal awards, it's also important to know that its influence is far-reaching and sometimes can influence the regulations and guidance that we are getting from other award agencies and non-federal awards as well. So the overarching goal of the uniform guidance is to improve program performance by giving that guidance about how to approach awards. It's helping to reduce the administrative burden on the award recipients by establishing process and addressing misconceptions. And it also helps mitigate the risk of inappropriate use of federal funds, which just protects you as the researcher and it protects the institution. So it helps us to avoid kind of stepping in those pitfalls that we don't want to have as researchers, because we know that that can be a little tenuous.
So who it impacts? So basically, this guidance impacts all organizations and their personnel who deal with grants, contracts, and agreements funded by federal money. So it's the grantors the federal agencies, their teams, the grantees, the recipients of the money and their teams, and the auditors. So the grantors are the federal agencies that administer federal financial assistance programs. So in our case, most of the times we are talking about Department of Education, NSF, all other federal agencies that are funding our research and other activities. And the grantees, recipients of federal funds, in our case, we are talking about the university and its awarded researchers.
This is what it actually looks like when you go to access the document. And I am going to drop the link in the chat so you each have the link to this document. There you go. And you'll notice a couple of things about the organization here. First, the organization is that there's a search bar at the top. So any word that you type or collaboration of words that you type into that search bar, the results are going to pull that as a search hit. So if you were to type, for example, effort, anytime that the word effort shows up in any of Title II's Subtitle A, Chapter 2, Part 200, it is going to give you the results of that. So sometimes the results are really helpful, and sometimes it's a lot of things to sort through. So we're going to point out a couple of parts in Part 200 that are really important to understand and to be aware of. The actual document is named 2 CFR 200 because it is the Code of Federal Regulations, that's the CFR. It's 2 because it falls under Title II for grants and agreements, and 200 because it is Part 200, which addresses uniform administrative requirements, cost principles, and audit requirements for federal awards. Within Part 200, there are several subparts, and within each subpart, there are additional components or kind of like mini chapters, if you will. So as you go through each of those parts, there are things to be aware of and think about, but that's how you can navigate through it. You can click on each of the subparts, you can show the drop downs, you can look at specifics for what you would maybe want to find, or you can use the search bar to look for key words or things that you might have wonders about as you are trying to navigate this document. So we're not going to take you through the whole document, but wanted to give you a quick overview of how it's set up and how you can navigate the document here at the website.
So when you look at the document overall, you see that it mainly focuses on the grantors, the federal agencies, finance departments, and the grantees' finance departments, because it's all about the accounting and financial execution of the grants. But what we are trying to bring today for us researchers is the specifics that this uniform guidance has to us. So thinking about specifics for researchers in institutions of higher education, we have to show you specifics about reporting, all the effort that has been going on, those federal funded programs and projects. So here we bring to you the concept of what we call here at UDC the time and effort report. Because the uniform guidance tells that all the grantees have the obligation to make it documented and informed what is the actual situation of the time and effort that is put into each of those grants. We have this accountability tool of reporting. So this is a broad guidance again, and we are going to look specifically at how we can approach it from a researcher's standpoint. So when we think about compliance, we are not, as researchers and the work we do under the Office of Sponsored Programs, we are not thinking about financial compliance. So on the side of non-financial compliance, the time and effort reporting tool is one of the key elements that we have to pay attention to. So this time and effort report is an after-the-fact confirmation method of effort reporting on the execution of sponsored research and other activities. So this tool is designed for institutions of higher education due to our specifics in establishing and calculating salaries and fringe benefits. So its objective, as I said, is to document and inform the level of effort that was expended regarding all grants, agreements under a researcher's responsibility. So therefore, it must account for the total actual work activity for which each employee is compensated under a certain grant or agreement. So the time and effort report is seen really as an accountability tool to help ensuring that the federal funds were charged only for the time our researchers actually work on allowable cost activities within the sponsored project. So those are the deadlines that our policies have established for the moment to inform this time and effort. So at UDC, we have them segregated by fall, spring, and summer term regarding the academic year. So this is how we accomplish our obligation of informing and having the time and effort documented at UGC. And Alex, feel free to interrupt me if we need to go in depth to any of those.
Well, could you go back really quickly?
Sure.
So in practicality, if I was a faculty and I had, say, a course load of, however many classes I was teaching, but I also was the PI on 2 grants. And then maybe I also had an MOU that was not a federal award, but it was an agreement for another project. Each of those things that I'm doing, would I identify them on my time and effort report for, let's say, the fall term and then again the spring term? Is that how that works?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
So
So
it's an effort to have all our time documented in a manner that we can segregate in terms of what we are being compensated for, segregated in specifically the grants or agreements or any other functions that we perform with external funds. Absolutely.
perfect.
Okay. Another element that we think it's important to highlight to you guys, researchers in a higher education institution, is cost sharing or matching. So first of all, those are interchangeable terms. And the cost sharing is not something that it is mandatory. So on the federal funded research proposals, voluntarily committed cost sharing is not expected. It's not mandatory, but maybe it happens if both in accordance with the federal awarding agency regulations and if it is specified in a notice of funding opportunity. So in some circumstances, we may have cost sharing, and that can happen by means of cash support from the grantee institution or an in-kind labor from its personnel. So if we are committed in a grant to having some cost sharing, the university is then obligated to ensure that at least the promised amount of in-kind labor or cash support is provided and documented. Here we also see the importance, again, of the time and effort report tool as a tool, really an accountability tool. When we talk about cost sharing, this is something that we need to be aware of, that this is something to match, the money that is coming from the federal agency and what we were established to provide as the amount of cost sharing or matching. Okay, now we want just to address a slight interesting concept that it is equipment versus supplies. And sometimes on the contrary of what our common sense tells us, not all equipment is really a piece of device, and not all supplies are really something that is material that can be deteriorated fast. So because it's sometimes counterintuitive, we thought that it is interesting to highlight this accounting convention of classifying what it is an equipment, what are supplies. So under the definitions of the uniform guidance, we see that equipment is any personal property, and by personal property, it means any non-real estate property. So we are talking about anything that is not land or buildings. So any personal property that can be tangible can also be intangible, like a software. So it's funny, again, counterintuitive, because even if a software is not really a piece of device, it's not tangible, but for the sake of the accounting classification, it is seen as an equipment as long as it meets two criteria. So the two criteria here are the cost of acquisition and the useful lifetime. So if we are in front of any type of personal property whose value of acquisition is equal or exceeding $5,000, and that has a lifetime, useful lifetime of more than 1 year, the classification of it is equipment, even if it's something intangible, like a piece of software. So it's useful to go over section 200 definitions, where we can also take a look at the concept of capital asset, computing devices, general purpose equipment, information technology systems, and special purpose equipment. When we compare the definition of equipment with the definition of supplies, we see that they match in the sense that when I look to a supply here, I have the basis of one criterion, which is only the cost of acquisition. So here, if the cost of acquisition of any asset is less than $5,000, regardless of its useful lifetime, I'll classify that as a supply. So again, this is merely an accounting classification, but for the sake of us preparing the budget when we are ready to submit our proposals, and for the sake of us dealing with the spending plans, we need sometimes to have this really understood, because when we talk about equipment, we have two criteria. So price of acquisition and lifetime. When we talk about the supplies, we are only looking at its price of acquisition, regardless of its length of useful lifetime. Okay, so we are reaching the end of our presentation today, that we have showed you specifics on how our Office of University Research is organized, our structure. We took a look together at some high-level overview understanding of what is the uniform guidance. We took a look at some specifics, some accounting concepts of equipment, supplies, and we really thank everybody. And now it's the time not only to say thank you, but to ask for any type of questions or comments that you might have. So I'll pass to Alexandra, and I'm coming back shortly.
So before we close out officially for today, we did want to open it up to if anybody did have something to add or if there were any questions or clarifying comments for the good of the group. If you would rather have your 30 minutes back for the rest of this time that was blocked on your calendar, I did drop a link to our feedback form that our office uses where you can put in some suggestions or if you are needing additional support in any way. If you could go to the last slide, yeah. Everybody
Yeah.
in our office, all of our contacts are here on the screen. And we did that because even though Alzira and I are presenting today, really this is a collective group effort and we all are here to support you in your research efforts and help you do the research you want to do. And we're here to help kind of navigate all of those regulations and governing body guidance documents that can be very cumbersome. And we serve as your subject matter experts in those areas. So we thank you all for attending. And if anyone has any quick questions, let's do that first and then we'll close out. I see Laura Lee.
Laura Lee always has something good to say. She has
Hello,
her
Miss
hand.
Davidson. How are
Yes.
you this afternoon?
Good morning, team. Great job. Just wanted to say very, very well presented and look forward to additional topics being shared under this category as we go forward. It definitely clarified in plain speak for some of the issues that faculty have asked about when when they're submitting proposals or even when we ask for things like the time and effort report. So just wanted to say kudos on that and welcome aboard.
So much. This is the first of a
Thank
series,
you.
isn't it, Alex? This is just the
It
first one.
is. It is. It is. Thank you very much, Laura Lee. And I see Dr. McCrary's hand is up too.
Yes, and I will just echo Ms. Davidson's remarks. Great presentation. Glad that this is being recorded. Looking forward to seeing a library of these things that faculty can access. I want to also thank all the participants who came on this, and thank you both, Alzira and Alexandra, and the rest of the OSP team and Office of University Research putting this together. Compliance will only take us to the heavens, to where we need to go. And when we do these type of things and have these type of forums, this is really good. And so I look forward to more of these, as well as a repeat of this in the spring, as well as at some point in time, we can put out a whole library that folks can be able to look asynchronously. So again, kudos and happy holidays to everybody.
Thank you very much, Dr. McCrary. Are there any other questions or comments for the good of the group before we close?
Yeah, this was a wonderful presentation. So Ms. Laing and Dr. Harrison, any final thoughts before we conclude today?
All right. I think we'll just say thank you all for attending. Please feel free to share the recording with folks. Please feel free to reach out to anyone that you may need support from. And we hope that you were able today to get a broad understanding of the way that the uniform guidance is structured, as well as some of the specifics that are relevant to us as university researchers. We would like to specifically thank the Center for the Advancement of Learning and David for helping to host this session, and as well Dr. Malva Reed, who was unable to join us today. She's the Assistant Chief Academic Officer of Graduate and Online Education and Academic Partnerships, and she has brought us in for the opportunity to disseminate the work we're doing in the Office of University Research. And we are very, very grateful to her allowing us to and bringing us in to be part of this series. So thank you all.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thank you so
everyone.
much for the attendance. And we have a form for comments and suggestions that Alex is gonna drop at the chat, the link. It's a permanent link that we are always receiving comments and suggestions and criticism so we can improve our work, because really we are always excited about supporting research and innovation at UDC. So feel free to reach out to us anytime. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.